Hello, this is Debbie with Tough the Unstoppable Female, and I have another incredible video I would love to share with you. This one is by Tad Sturmer, an American scholar of resistance history in the American Revolution. He teaches at the University of Southern Denmark and Johns Hopkins. The subject is how we are still complicit in perpetuating American slavery. Remember the saying, knowledge is power? Let's learn.
People are still arguing about slavery and the Smithsonian. Of course, get on with your bad selves. But the bigger fight isn't about labels in a gallery. The truth is more direct and more dangerous, at least from where I sit. Slavery isn't over. Hey folks, I'm Tad Sturmer. I'm an American scholar of resistance history and the American Revolution at the University of Southern Denmark and Johns Hopkins. The men who built America on bondage didn't just fail to end it. They weren't constrained by their circumstances. They actively chose and planned to entrench it, to strengthen it, and to pass down its profits. Their heirs inherited the wealth and the power. And every time we excuse those people, every time a white person says, focus on the good the founders did, we extend the same logic that protected slavery in the first place. As James Madison said, as great an evil as slavery is, the Union is more important. Oh, really? There must be some union. But I guess he would say that as a political structure that ensures that his will continues unchallenged would be more important than the lives of a fifth of the population of that country in chains. He would say that. You don't have to keep repeating it like you think it's great. That's complicity. That's how American slavery endured then and how its white nationalist authority endures today. Now, the fury in favor of the Smithsonian proves part of the point. Even though only a few people are paying attention to what's actually being targeted, think about the defense of Franklin, of Benjamin Franklin, as a great man, right? That this White House is just sort of rushing to take care of. It's one of their examples. The exhibit about him, about the electric Dr. Franklin, that the regime thinks is so offensive, just dares to say what history and historians have been making plain, and what is true about all of the founders, and what it is that this regime wants to stop in its tracks. Franklin's achievements might not have been his. Enslaved people gave him time, labor, obedience, and perhaps expertise. The law demanded it of them. They had no choice. It's one of the benefits of slavery that Franklin himself explicitly promoted over the benefits of paid labor. That stolen time from enslaved people became science. Their stolen lives became his achievement. This regime wants that story silenced because it forces us to see slavery not as a closed chapter, but as the operating system of American success. Privileged white guys will exploit other people to cosplay the achievement and then cover up the bodies they stepped on to climb to the top. And it isn't Franklin only. They're also going after the causes of the Mexican-American War, the impact of the Chinese Exclusion Act, and the role of the police in George Floyd's murder. Each of those examples dares to connect the past to the present, to show that exploitation and the core nature of it is not over. That is what the regime cannot stand you to know. Yet too many on the left race to post the obvious, while still celebrating enslavers as if they should be our guides today. The contradiction is staggering. Why not just say that you need to take the high ground on redistricting while those people steal your country to return it root and branch, the world of the founders, of the enslavers? Let's exclude everybody else but the white guys at the top. Because Washington, Jefferson, Madison, and Hamilton, and the rest of the boys in the band weren't reluctant participants in a system they couldn't escape. They were the architects of it. Did they have the capacity to make the world anew or not? Did the world get turned upside down or not? They made these active choices, not just to plan it, but to implement it, to expand it, to extend it, to deepen its brutality and embed it so completely that it took armed resistance and extraordinary struggle outside the Constitution against both the Constitution and the political will of the nation to end even its legality. And doing that did not stop it. It mutated. Jim Crow, redlining, mass incarceration. All of those are slavery's continuation, not its legacy. Which means that when you like Mount Vernon's post about Washington's dining room, when you buy an annual pass to Monticello, when you invoke Jefferson or Madison's name in the service of resistance, you're not being harmless. You're being complicit. You are laundering violence into heritage, turning privilege into achievement, and teaching the descendants of the enslaved that the harm they live with is still a footnote, and the heirs to the founders, to the enslavers, that they can exploit and abuse and be excused. That is slavery, still operating, in all the choices we make to admire those who built their lives on exploitation. So what do we do about it? Well, stop letting those social media posts from Mount Vernon and Monticello and Colonial Williamsburg and the Museum of the American Revolution sit as festering grounds for white nationalism. Stop sharing memes with Thomas Jefferson quotes as if they represent some kind of revolution of the people, unless by the people you mean Jefferson's people, the enslavers and their world. Burn those Colonial Williamsburg t-shirts. Starve that entire industry, from its pillows to its coffee mugs to its books, of all the oxygen it still needs from exploiting enslaved people, from perpetuating those lies, from exploiting the memory of enslaved people and the literal products of their works that remain today, and extending the function of American slavery into the present. Keep this regime from operating to serve its own ends, that the world of white men who exploit others for their own purposes, removed of all accountability for their crimes, can long endure. And I know that some of you will say, but those places have made so much progress. Now they sometimes even say the names of enslaved people. Yeah, those institutions that employ almost entirely white people, that reluctantly have a few token, separate but equal programs to show as a public relations strategy that they knew slavery existed, and always, every day, centered the experience of a few white people at the top. Yes, they're making progress. Malcolm X would tell you to not thank them for pulling the knife out a few inches while leaving the rest of it in. Because every time you boost them, you're saying enslavers' lives matter. Instead of feeding those institutions, give your time, your attention, your money to the people on the ground who are doing the work. Cheney McKnight at Not Your Mama's History is one of the best public historians working today. She just reposted about her program, the Let's Talk About Slavery table. Volunteer, join her Patreon. If you're a supporter of mine, I love you, but take those resources and shift them to her. Her work matters more. Expand and extend it. Boost Joe McGill at the Slave Dwelling Project, or Frederick Deshawn Murphy at History Before Us, or the incredible team at Whitney Plantation. Strengthen their foundations. Because with powerful public historians like that leading the conversation, there is nothing Donald Trump or any regime can do to erase the honest history of slavery. There was never justice for the enslaved. No trials, no reparations, no recognition of slavery as the crime against humanity that it was. Instead, the entire slave society was allowed to pick up and move on, privileges intact. The perpetrators returned to their homes, their businesses, their churches, their politics. They lived out their lives, passed down their wealth, and died surrounded by grandchildren, never once held to account for generations of harm and brutality, for everything they stole. No one stood in judgment for the theft of bodies, the torture, the rape, the mass destruction of families. No one was called to answer for embedding a system so vicious it required war, the deaths of hundreds of thousands, to break its legality. But crimes against humanity do not expire. There's no statute of limitations. And by every standard we claim to uphold, they should still be prosecuted. But instead, we let them be celebrated, their names etched in stone, their words treated as gospel, their victims forgotten. That's not history closed. It's history left wide open and bleeding. Slavery wasn't ended. It continues in wealth that compounds, in law that constrains, in memory that celebrates enslavers as heroes and silences the people who actually made this country. And until the people still living under its weight are free, none of us are free. All effective resistance begins with refusal. The refusal of abusive authority. So refuse to even pretend that the enslavers matter in our world, in the country we want to remake, in the face of a regime that wants to use those enslavers and their examples as fuels for the fire that's going to burn it all down.